People right here on K24 television. And this time round, it's all about getting you out of your comfort zone. You've drafted that New Year's resolution list. We're halfway through the year. What happened to that plan? You're a company and you have that vision statement on the wall. What's really going on there because people aren't moving in the right direction? This is the time to jolt you out of that and get you moving. And you have just the person to take us through that. Chris McChesney, of course, he's a global practice leader in terms of the execution practice. Yes, execution is a skill in and of its own. And that's what we're jumping into to discuss right here and go through all of that from a CEO's level, an entrepreneur, and also at an individual level. How do you get yourself out of your comfort zone and take it to the next level? Mr. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Karibu to Kenya.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm having a great time.
Fantastic stuff. And it's so interesting because right before you went on, you told me your first job, you pretended to be an intern for 4 months because your focus is, I'm going to get this done. I will execute on this and get in here. How was it?
Stephen Covey his organization was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right.
I felt like it had changed my life and I wanted to work for them and they weren't interviewing.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll interview them.
You created a job.
I created a job. And the newspaper published my article, so it didn't make a liar out of me.
Right.
So,
right.
And that was 28 years ago, and they decided to keep me.
Wow.
So,
did you ever tell them about that particular
Oh, they
part?
figured it out. Yeah, I got called into HR 4 months in, and they said, "Kid, you can't do this. There are laws. We have to pay you." But they didn't have the heart to fire me, so they kept me on, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Right. And even that particular point, because I'm assuming you probably read the book, in those 7 Highly Effective Habits.
Yes.
In your mind, what did you want to do? What was the big picture for Chris? What did you want to do?
Well, I couldn't believe that there was an organization that taught leadership skills. And that was an actual business. I thought that was just a hobby. And my head exploded when I found out that there's an entire organization, there's an industry for developing human capital. And anyways, that was just very exciting to me at the time.
Right. And it's interesting you mentioned that because along the way you went on to different other organizations and, really enhanced your corporate profile. For you, when you're moving from one organization to another, what is it you're looking for in terms of, is it a gap in yourself that you feel that you want to fill in terms of your leadership capability, or a gap in the organization that you're like, okay, fine, I'll go and do that?
That is a fantastic question. It's an interesting question. For me personally, the type of industry doesn't matter as much, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's technology, whether it's government. It has more to do with the leader. And when you find a leader that has a real burning passion around achieving. They have an itch to scratch.
Right.
And those are the people that I like to connect myself with.
Right.
And if you any chance you get an opportunity to work with or run behind a great leader, amazing things happen as a rule.
And it's interesting you mentioned that because as a great leader or leading different organizations, does it matter in terms of the technical skill? You really need to be good at finance to lead a private equity company, or really good at healthcare, to be a doctor to handle a healthcare company? How much?
It's so interesting. I've seen enough examples where people without the technical skill that's held by the organization have been very successful.
Right.
But what you do tend to see is institutional knowledge. So I have seen where great leaders have grown up in an organization and they know how to dance with the organization.
Right.
They know how to get things done, and they're part of the institution. So part of me wants to say it doesn't matter, but there's this other part of me that says, no, I've seen those homegrown leaders really have a big splash.
And I like because you mentioned that because, of course, the natural question is, what makes a great leader? That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
I've been thinking about this one. And one of the really fun parts of my job is every once in a while, a few times a year, I get to work with some really spectacular, very, very notable leaders. And can I give it to you in 2 points?
Please.
Okay, this could be a huge oversimplification, but there's a future book in this, I think. And I think it's the same too for parenting.
Wow. Okay. Break it down.
High expectations and love, for lack of a better word. One of the most innovative companies in the world, a grocery store called Wegmans. They do amazing things. They're known everywhere. And I've begun to see this pattern in different places. They expect a great deal from their leaders. When you join their organization, when you work with them, they view you in really high regard. And you feel this incredible pressure, but that's balanced with a very genuine concern for the human being. And if you've ever known someone that says, I have great parents,
It's the same
expectations and love. So
Right.
it's probably a huge oversimplification,
Right.
but I think there's something there.
Right, because they'll take you 40,000 feet above sea level, but there's a safety net of love.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you
that's
know they've
right.
got your back.
That's
as well.
well said. Yeah,
Right?
that's the balance
Yeah.
point. Very
Okay.
good.
Fantastic stuff. And even as we talk about this, because with every leader, of course, at the end of the day, you're measured by your results. You know, at the beginning of the year, you have
right.
all of these plans, and this is what you
Yep.
want to do. At the end of the year, we sit down with the boss and Chris, did we manage to do this? Let's tick the boxes. And the other things to
You know what we
execution
say?
comes in.
People will talk about all of a leader's wonderful qualities
Right.
until they don't get good results.
Uh-huh.
And then nobody cares. Nobody
Nobody
cares how
remembers.
good you are with people. Nobody cares how charismatic you are, how warm you are.
Right.
When the results aren't there, you will just quietly be moved off stage.
Right.
And they'll try somebody else.
Right.
You're right. It really comes down to your ability to create results.
Right.
And there's a million things that are out of your control. In terms of what's in your control, you have your plan, and you got your ability to execute your plan.
Right.
And then a million things out of your control. But that, getting leaders to come back to, am I clear about my plan? And am I as committed to the disciplines of getting it done
Right.
as I am to the results I
Right.
want?
And that's the job.
That's
That
the
really
job.
is a job, because
Yep.
once you have the dream, execution, that's really what you're supposed to be doing every single day with a singular focus.
What happens after the emotion of the decision wears off?
Right.
Once the buzz and the enthusiasm, right, is the discipline to execute still in place?
Right. And let's talk about that, because you're a global practice leader when it comes to execution. How do you break this down when it comes to everyone having, even from a personal level, it's the same struggle, probably at a different level when it comes to,
totally is.
Execution. What's the biggest problem? What's the biggest impediment people have in executing?
It's an urgency fixation. All right. In the moment, a human being, you, me, everybody you know, will go to something urgent over something that's more important but not as urgent. So you're working on that big project, and you can't believe you just opened that email, or you just answered that text, or you just, and we don't think much of that because we can override that tendency.
Right.
But when you realize, here's the problem, that the activities necessary for your plan are never as urgent as the day job. So in every organization, in every person's life, there's the stuff I want to do to achieve my goal, but then there's all the stuff I have to do just to survive every day.
Right.
There's all the things I have to do just to keep the business running.
Right.
That stuff always feels more urgent than the activities of the goal. And that, well, I'll tell you, that is the number one, and it's the most universal problem, and it's a little bit invisible. We gave it a name, we call it the whirlwind.
Right.
The all of the things necessary to maintain my life, my job, just to survive the day, that's what crushes the new goal. It's not
suck
lazy.
you in a vortex.
Right? It's not that we're lazy. It's not that we're stupid. We're busy. And it takes discipline to pull out of the urgency.
And with that, discipline is one of very many Ds that we'll talk about. There are 4 Ds in here that you need to unpack and see how we can actually move this and make sure whatever you had at the beginning of 2019, by the end of 2019,
yeah, it's a great way to phrase it. Yeah.
You've made some progress.
How do you know, right? Just with a New Year's resolution, that's a great way to frame it.
And what are some of these things we should be looking at? Because you've written books, you've spoken to organizations, you've done a lot in terms of, in different countries.
We've done a lot of things wrong. That's how you get to know about anything.
As well.
We made every possible mistake. So what was left must have been the right answer.
And what is it that people need to do just to move forward?
The first thing is, it can't be an idea. It has to be a target.
Wow.
And we all think, oh, I know what it is. Oh, I know I want to lose weight. Oh, I know I want to do better at school. No. You have to draw a line in the sand with real accountability. And it needs a starting line, it needs a finish line, and it needs a deadline. Execution has its own language, and it's the language of targets. And, the CEOs that we'll work with over the next 2 days, we're going to talk to them about how to translate a conceptual strategy into the fewest targets necessary to implement it. But on a personal level, think about day job plus one. If I can just survive, get the shoes on the kids in the morning, get them to school, make some food, like if I can do that plus one. Human beings need that one thing that they're moving towards. So, I'd love for your viewers to think, what's my plus one? And then put it in a starting line, a finish line, and a deadline. It's a very just that first discipline can be very energizing.
And because when you put it that way, it seems like Okay, fine. That should be easy. Put this in place and I'm good to go.
Right.
But you've worked with government. It's not an issue with personal people, even with government's public sector as well.
Yes.
It's a huge issue. We have great manifestos and, after the election campaign.
Oh, everywhere in the world, it's not just you guys.
Yeah, we're ready to do it.
Right.
But then, a couple
Show
of
me the politician
years
that
into the
follows
term,
through, right?
That's the thing. And what's the issue there as well?
Yeah.
No deadline, no finish line?
Yeah, no finish line. And then sometimes there's this, and this catches people off guard, there's the tendency to go too high.
Are we dreaming too
big? Yeah, and you can have high-level aspirations, but the targets need to be visible, right? And they need to be something. One of the things we talk about is a winnable game. And the 50-meter target, what am I going to do over the next 3 months? What am I going to do over the next 6 months? You put something out too far, it loses its accountability somehow.
Right. So does that mean even from that particular level, even as citizens, we need to demand more realistic promises from our leaders, next time they're coming to us? We don't want the super mega, project. Let's just do this road.
Yeah, I would be aware of pie in the sky. I'd be weary of that, and I'd be weary of a million goals too. But I think where it makes the biggest difference is on an individual level.
Right.
And just say, in my own life, and think about this. Think about children too. Anybody who has teenagers has drama.
Oh man.
Right, and it just comes with it. And you can fix problems all day long. But the real question, I think, is there some place in that child's life where they're winning? Does that kid have just one part of their life where there's a clear target and they're really focused on achieving just one thing? You have a much healthier human being.
Right.
It's very good. There's something about the way we're wired, right? If we're achieving, if we're progressing, we're happier creatures.
True. And happier creature can do much more.
That's right.
Yeah, wherever the environment is. And it's interesting we talk about that because just the order we're getting, this guy, high energy, Chris is just really fun.
All these lights and cameras, it's not hard. It's not hard when you're on TV.
And somebody mistaken the fact that this guy, he had it easy. He faked his first job and has never stopped from there. He just moved on up and up and up. But from that particular position, once you had the conversation with HR and they busted you for what you did, what is your career progression from there? Where did you go to next?
I followed really smart people. Stephen Covey's organization, and because of who Stephen Covey was, he attracted a lot of bright people to the company.
Right.
And these people became my mentors. And so I was, I had a father, I lost him a year ago, but I had a father that really emphasized contribution.
Right.
And he said, Chris, don't feel sorry for yourself. Like, find some place to make a contribution. And so my goal was to get behind and support the smartest person I could find. And thankfully, there were some really bright people. And so I got to, it's that old expression, stand on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
I got to work with a variety of people that taught me a great deal. And I think that's the single thread that I could say through my career was I got the blessing of people and older people that were willing to teach me.
Right.
And were willing to invest in me. Even if I drove them crazy half the time, they tolerated me.
Right, and it's something because nowadays that's an interesting narrative people are having. Always seek a mentor, someone who can, guide you through whatever you're going through at that particular time. But as someone looking for a mentor, or probably a mentor looking for a mentee, what's the dynamic of that relationship? When you are looking for this great person to follow, what is the criteria you tick off the box?
I think the thing that's most attractive to a mentor for a mentee is curiosity.
Right.
Your energy is fantastic because you have a very curious mind. You'll just grab onto something right away. That's a very attractive thing to older people. They like young professionals that are anxious to learn and want to learn.
Right.
And just being curious in sales, just being curious about your customer instead of just being on your own agenda all the same. In 100 positions, I'm a big fan of curiosity and wonder. It's very attractive.
Right. And what about the other way around? When it's a mentee looking up for a mentor, what should they be looking for there? Because for most of the times, you just want somebody successful. You saw them in a headline somewhere. I want to follow Chris, but is Chris really the right mentor for you?
There's a great expression that it's better to fall in love with a problem than to fall in love with a solution.
Unpack that.
Okay, so we fell in love with the problem of execution. And so the solution was able to change and change and change because we didn't fall in love with our first idea.
Right.
So if there's something that you're fascinated with, yeah, like in the public sector, there was a leader and she wanted to reduce repeat cases of child maltreatment. she ended up reducing across the state of Georgia in the United States, she reduced repeat cases of child maltreatment by 60%. But her whole career, right? So if there's a problem, if there's something that you really, someplace you want to make a little dent in the universe,
right?
Or you'd like to be part of making a little dent.
Right.
Once you know that, your mentors will show up.
Right.
There are people doing things in that space, but don't focus on the solution. Focus on a problem.
Right.
And who's challenging the problem.
Right.
They'll show up.
Right. It's interesting you put it that way, because now it just makes it even more clear for somebody to decide, if I want a mentor, before I look for the mentor, let me figure out the problem and what I want to do.
Yes.
I'll find them on the pitch
They'll
as I'm
be
playing
there.
the game.
That's right.
Yeah. And
they'll show up.
because for you, you've been to different companies, you've done different consultancies. When you get in, is there a pushback in the sense that there's this consultant coming in, he doesn't know our problems, he's not, okay, you're coming to Kenya, he doesn't know what Kenyans are going through, he won't understand our problem, everything works in Atlanta, Georgia, where he's from.
Have you been following me around? 'Cause that feels very familiar.
How do you deal with that?
I'll tell you, it's back to the problem. When a leader realizes, and we think every leader has this one itch to scratch. They know what they want to do. You watch, every bright leader, if you ask them, they have a plan. And parts of that plan, they can get done with money and they can get done with authority. They can move levers. But part of that plan requires human beings to get on board. And that's tough for the brightest people in the world.
Right.
And so because we've studied that problem, they want to hear. They might not want to buy from us. They might not want to do what we say, but their curiosity gets the best of them. And they want to know, all right, like you said, unpack that one for me.
Right.
What are the steps? And I think that's the reason I was invited to Kenya, was because, Razor, our Franklin Covey affiliate here, and their clients are interested in that topic. Now, the key, though, is you have to respect that you don't know their business and you don't know their country. And we deal in principles, universal truths, but how you apply those principles is very particular to the organization, to the leader. And we try and really sort of reverence that. Look, we're not going to tell you what to do. We just know when you follow these principles, you get these outcomes.
Right. And as you talk about that, when you look back at the various places you've been, what is one of the biggest challenges that you faced? You got in this particular job and you're like, whoa, I didn't know this was going to be that hard.
So many. Sometimes, you know what's funny? You see these giant organizations and you think they have the most complex problems.
Right.
But there's this problem that my consultants and I always make, and that is we assume that the small and medium-sized companies are easier. And they never are. And if you go into a small and medium-sized company thinking, well, you're a small-sized company, your problems are probably small.
Right.
Oh, no. You got people, and they're wearing 12 hats, and your head just wants to explode, and you just have to go, no. Even though they're a small company, the complexity is still there. And everybody else's job looks easy. Everybody's, all they do is build fighter planes. We have to do this. So there's, reverencing. But I'll have to think about that one. What was the hardest one? Sometimes the technical elements are so challenging, we can't understand our client. It takes us a while just to know what they're saying. But people that are running organizations, my CEO likes to say, if you see a person on top of a mountain, you can be pretty sure they didn't fall there.
Right.
So the people who are running great operations, they're not dumb, right? They got challenges like everybody else. And the first thing is you respect the fact that this person has already built something, because most businesses don't make it.
Right.
And so you start by looking for, what are they doing right? And then you look at where the principles might apply. And then you follow their lead. Their instincts are very good when it comes to their company.
Right. Okay, that's some good stuff. And since you're here for 2 days, let's talk about that. You have an engagement this evening, another keynote tomorrow.
Yes.
What's going on?
So tonight, the Capital Club, we have about CEOs and senior leaders from about 50 organizations. And Razor is the Capital Performance Human Performance Group that's our licensee. They're our sponsors. So
Right.
if you want more information on that,
I can get it
just
from the
look up
Razor
for
Resource
Razor.
Group.
Yeah, that's right. So tonight's kind of an overview just for an hour at the Capitol Club. Then tomorrow is an all-day kind of a masterclass in execution.
Right.
So everything we learned in 17 years in one day, we get it all in.
Wow.
Your head's going to be spinning, but we cover it.
Right.
And it's what's the, how does it show up in your organization? What are the basic principles? And then in the afternoon, we get them in trying to apply those principles, working with their strategy. So very much a hands-on session in the afternoon.
Right. And when you talk about that, someone might be watching and thinking, okay, fine, this sounds like it's something for only either CEOs, senior managers. I'm in my first job. Am I supposed to be at this particular, keynote, or is it, above my pay grade? Wait a couple of years, get a promotion. Next time Chris is in town, I'll go for his talk.
I got into the topic of leadership development 10 years before I became a leader. And if you see yourself becoming a leader,
right,
the time to learn about being a leader is not when you get that first leadership role.
Right.
Learn now. And then what you learn, and Stephen Covey was a big advocate of this, that you can be a leader even if you're not in a leadership role.
Right. Lead without title.
Yeah, that's right. Lead without title. And organizations are desperate for people who solve problems and who are innovators and are spending more energy trying to help the problem than worried about themselves. If you can forget yourself and just dive into something, contribution and gratitude, oh man, they open doors for people.
Right. And you talk about this.
And it's hard. I make that sound like that's
yeah,
easy.
Yeah, that's
I struggle with that every day.
And with different organizations, there's this thing that people talk about, corporate politics, the politics in the office every single day. How do people deal with that? Because at times it gets so divisive.
Yes.
People are busy playing the politics and not diving into the problem.
I fall into this trap once a month. I'm a very flawed human being, I swear. And I just remember one thing. Politics always seem to revolve around this word fair. Fair is not the operating principle in this universe. Right? We all want that. Children know it before they can talk. I tell them I have 7 children. That's not fair. I got 7 kids. I got a 27-year-old down to a 9-year-old. And our motto is life's not fair and dad doesn't care.
Wow.
And as soon as you can get a human being off the fairness thing, right, they can go on to lead a happy, productive life. And so I fall into this trap myself. And what I have to think of is, okay, no one told you it was going to be fair, Chris. I know what's happening to you right now. I know they just cut your budget. I know they don't appreciate this. I know that. I know the other thing. And then if I can just stop and say, no, from their perspective, what would be a win for them?
Right.
And it's hard. It's like swallowing the worst tasting pill. What can I do? If I can just go there, things have a way of working out. And I know maybe that sounds overly simplistic, but so much of corporate politics are created by this, it's not fair. And no, of course it's not. It's never going to be. But it gets better. It gets better when you start contributing. I swear it.
Okay, fantastic stuff, Mr. Chris. Thank you so much for coming.
You are a lot of fun, man.
Thank you so much. Of course, all the best tonight at the Capitol Club and, of course, tomorrow as well. I'm sure it's going to be a keynote and a half.
I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you, Jeff.
So much, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. Of course, a ball of energy. If you don't feel like you want to get out there and seize your goal and execute right now, man, I don't know. Of course, that has been Chris McChesney, of course, the global practice leader of execution. As we tell you every single morning, execution is a skill in itself. Get out there, make sure you have deliverable goals, deadlines, finish lines, make sure they're all in place and go out there and seize your goals. Of course, that has been up close and personal right here. We took a short break. It's Wellness Wednesday.